Well, I think we're all here, so good evening, everybody. As you know, the conference will be held in Italian with the simultaneous translation. So, welcome. My name is Roberto Lovecchio. I'm a journalist at Quattro Ruote, the most famous monthly car magazine in Italy. Of the two people that are here tonight with you and who will talk to you, I'm actually the only one who needs the presentation because the other person, Walter De Silva, is known by everybody. He is the father of Alpha 156, Audi A5, Golf 7, to mention only some of the extraordinary models that he has designed. This designer from Milan really left a huge mark on the car design scene in between the two millenniums. He was head of the Alfa Romeo brand first and all the brands of the Volkswagen group. Now Walter De Silva is an independent designer. He left the Volkswagen Group in 2015. He now follows several projects not only related to cars, and since 2018 he is the president of the transportation department here at the Polytechnical School of Design in Milan. Now, the fact that De Silva reached the peak of his career some years ago doesn't mean that he's a man who belongs in the past. He's actually very much projected into the future, and he's always able to read this future with smart provocations, and he's always able to catch the epochal changes that are happening with an astonishing clarity of mind.
To pop up and to understand and to get the changes of the eras. I think today we are at the eve of one of these changes of an era. Today, thanks to the help and collaboration of those who are able to manage these things, I would like to show you the first three slides. This is the first, this is the second one, and this is the third. So I think that these three slides are able to recap the period we are living. I'm not referring to the pandemic as much that it has conditioned our lives in the last 2 months and a half, and that forces us to have this meeting in remote, in virtual, through a screen, and that unfortunately had some dramatic consequences for many families. But I'm referring to the impact on the long term that this virus might have on our lifestyle, even when the virus will be gone. Because in any case, the virus will force us and is forcing us to review our everyday life, our daily routine. It will forces us to rethink our relationship with technology, to rethink our relationship with the car itself, the organization of work, the urban mobility. So I think that in front of us, we have some huge challenges, but we also have the opportunity to find a more human dimension, um, a balance in between digital and analogic, the one that we're referring, the slides that you just saw. And maybe we can all notice this, and we realized that even before the crisis, but we weren't able to do anything about it. And of course, rethinking, redesigning, all of it, it's proper design. Of course, I don't have to talk about it. So, with the great pleasure, I invite Walter de Silva on the stage, let's call it, and to share with all of us his thoughts on these things that I propose. Walter, okay, let's start back. Hi, Roberto, thank you for the beautiful introduction. Good evening to everybody, and thank you. Uh, Thank you for being here to this talk, to this meeting that we will have together. Roberto introduced the situation very well. Um, if we had this conference before Christmas, probably I would have said other things. But in these 3 months, I thought about a lot of things, and I have tried more than anything how to. I try to understand how mobility will change because we talk about it, but not that much, and we don't analyze it in the correct way because we talk about the nightlife, we talk about people that need to find themselves again and to meet again. But of course, mobility in general is it will be a matter of balance between our life towards the digital, but that we will need to share with the analogical side. So mobility will touch very important points in the next months, and I think that the relationship that we'll need to find is between the analogical and the post-digital, as I call it. By post-digital, I don't mean a resize of the digital, but I mean a more ethical relationship, in which augmented reality will be more connected to our everyday reality. I'll just give you a small example. If before we used to go to the gym for half an hour, 15 minutes a day, we understood that now our days are longer. We can distribute our hours in a better way. We can work from home. We can move in a more conscious way. We understood it because it's very easy to understand that the time to move from one house to the other, from one office to the other, one situation to another, the times will be different. Now, I can't see the next slide. I would like to be more. I would like to go in depth of the next slide. And I mean this by freedom. And mobility is not just made out of technology, project, innovation. Mobility is also made out of feelings. And we need to feel it. I chose this picture of Peter Fonda in Easy Ride from Easy Ride, the movie, because it's the symbol of what we perceive when we are on a motorbike or a car or whatever, a bicycle as well. But the fact that we go down this road without the helmet doesn't mean that we are not safe. Doesn't It means that we need to feel, we need to listen and touch what nature is offering us. So we can't live without the things that nature will give us. So I'm extremely convinced that the analogical mobility, the normal one, let's call it, will be very, very important. Not only because we need to enter in contact with other people, but also because we understood another thing, that to move will be different, will be a different moving. And finishing this first phase, when we talk about smart working, and especially during design, I kind of smile because in design, for example, we adopt smart working since 15 years. I mean, I was working for a studio that has offices in California, China, and Europe. So in 24 hours, we were working all from our cities. And it's just a very powerful media, very powerful to study, to work, to do the meeting. Yes, but it's not the only way that we will have. We will need to go back and move more consciously, obviously, and in a more suitable way, culturally speaking, which means that we will change a lot of kinds of vehicles. Sorry, I had my mic on mute because I didn't want to interfere uh, with the Walter's talk, and maybe we can go in details about this aspect because these new kind of vehicles. So first of all, let's start by saying that there is, of course, a huge drop in the sales. We don't sell cars, we don't sell motorbikes. There is a rush to incentives in order to find a recovery for the traditional vehicles, both in public and private. Actually, there was an emergency also in the private market. I have to say that I'm a bit controversial, meaning that I think that the private will start again and we start quite good. And it's the public that will need more time to suit itself to this new feeling, to this new consciousness we will have in movement. But be careful. The private needs to work on two main situations. First of all, the private cannot avoid the improvement of the networks, meaning that the cities, the big metropolis, they will need to redefine the urban space and the kind of vehicles need their own lanes in the city. This is a very clear slide. This is Milan, the situation of today, and this is how Milan will be in the project that I'm following. So different speeds, different safety, different signals, different codes, a different way to move, basically. And this will produce in the private vehicles some very clear kinds of vehicles that might go from the mini city car, the micro car, up to medium cars. But I think that in order to be able to move on the urban centers, it won't be possible with any kind of vehicles. We will need specific vehicles to move around. And the concept of speed that we will need to use, it's not the stop and go, it's a slow motion. A lot of people are astonished about the 30 kilometers per hour in the city. 30 kilometers per hour in the city, or, I mean, it's normal. If you consider that the average that we have today is 12 kilometers per hour, so 30 kilometers is already too much. The important thing is to set rules to organize this. We need to improve our network with vehicles with specific codes, from the motor scooter to the bicycle to the electric bicycle, the hybrid car, and the city car. Okay, but I mean, this implies also a radical change in this urban system, because in many of our cities, unfortunately, we don't have space for everything and for everybody and for all the kinds. And so inevitably, we will need to reach some compromises. And maybe we will need to allow some vehicles to move, and we need to forbid other kind of vehicles. Well, I said before, we need to renovate the roads, the urban roads, but we can't make some new roads because we need to use the one we already have. We just have to improve it, especially for the public vehicles, because when we talk about the public, I think that we have our electric roads, the buses, the subways, the trams. So we need to consider some vehicles. Okay, these are Remember, these are just provocations, but important provocations that I'm saying. And the public transport need to embrace the concept of the slow motion and not to reach one side of the city to the other in the quickest ways possible. We need to learn from, I don't know, imagine the airports and the malls. The circulation of people is fluid because there are no stop and go. And we need to include this in our cities. And this is very important because the public will need to we need to use it to use what we already have, but in a different way. And we with unexpected vehicles compared to a bus, a tram, so something new. Do you have some example? This is very interesting, but do you have some example? Well, I have a provocation. I mean, we had this slide we want. Okay, let's stay on this slide. It's a provocation, but we have a tram network in Milan, and we don't need to think about the future with the tram stops, people crashing into each other, waiting in the stop, because the concept of hygiene and the concept of mobility, respecting the other people now it's gone. We have it. Just like it was when we stopped smoking in the movies, in the movie theaters, on an airplane. So uh, it's just a safety measure. And this idea of the caterpillar system, to me, means like a continuous movement, very slow, that never stops. And in any case, there are some friction systems that in emergency cases is able to break. So this will allow you to move on and off like you do sorry, on a moving sidewalk. So it's just a provocation, and we can't repropose the old tram that we have. But the network, we have it in many cities, not only Milan. We have it. So what do? We destroy it? No. We just need to adapt it with new products, with new vehicles. Same thing for the subway. So to change the kind of speed is too frenetic. It's too fast right now in the city. Sometimes we provoke some really serious crashes and incidents because the speed and the crossing with the uh, people walking, pedestrians, things that are moving, it's very dangerous. And we should try to replace it slowly, step by step, with elements that are moving slowly but constant, that are able to take us everywhere. So, for example, for the bicycle, you need some specific cycle lanes with a specific color, specific concrete, and also the public network should need all these kind of things, all this material. Again, this is a provocation, I know, but it's just to say that we need to change the kind of products that we use to move around in cities. The objection that a person from Milan might say, um, a guy from Milan like you, Walter, is how our productive sites are able to approach this slow motion approach, our efficiency, our speed, our quickness. Where do we put it? But maybe the system that you are proposing with this provocation, as you called it, it's a system that, well, yes, will slow down some things, but it will erase all the dead times. Well, nothing changes, but well, from Cadorna to Cairoli, maybe a lot of people doesn't know there are two stops on the subway really close to each other, one next to the other. On the subway, it takes 2 minutes from one stop to the other, and then it says 3 minutes stop in Cadorna, 3 minutes in Cairoli. It stops there to let people go on and off. With the slow motion, in 5 minutes you arrive, you never stop, and you don't need to make stations. You don't need the stations anymore. You don't need to have the ticket with the smartphone. You have your ticket. So when we talk about the uh, conduction, I mean, I feel shivering because I keep talking about assistance and the autonomy to those who are free to choose whatever they want. And I think this is the big help, the big support that we need. And so to replace the stop and go system with the constant speed system, which means that in any case, whether it's a highway from Milan to Bologna or in the city, replace it with a treadmill, for example, a kind of treadmill. And also, you don't have traffic jam, you don't have gridlocks, you don't have stops, because there is a continuous thing. And by the way, when we go to the airport with our trolley on the treadmill, we never stop. We stop where? At the check-in. So again, another provocation. Even more important, at the airport, I would like to sit on a seat like that one, where it's already my place. I already have the number of my place, the seat. And when the airplane moves, I move with that seat. So I don't have to queue for the check-in. I don't have to queue for the security. I don't need to go to the bus from the gate to the airplane because I have my seat already signed and I move with that. I know these are provocations, but we need to change it. And if we can't change it, we will always have the same all the problems. And in this provocation, there is something solid. So use what we already have. So break down all the barriers and through colors, through modules, and through the urban furniture, let's call it urban architecture, we'll also have a more beautiful city. Well, I'm convinced. I I would like to go back for a while to the role of mobility, private mobility. Uh, in the scenario that Walter De Silva just pictured, uh, I think I see a kind of mix between private and public moving, where the private vehicles, the car, has a role, and the role is to complete, and it's in synergy with the public one. So it's not an alternative, like has always been. Like, I mean, the relationship between the private car and the city, at least in Europe, where I understand we have some urban contexts that were not created for cars. Well, this relationship has always seen in a conflictual way. So the private car has always been kind of tolerated in the city, but never legitimate. So if we think about a micro mobility, where the private vehicle is small, sustainable, environmentally sustainable, but also economically sustainable. But at this point, it needs to be sustainable also from the sociological and political aspect, because the car needs to be accepted and legitimated as one of the actor of the collective transport. So according to you, these new scenarios might open a bridge in this way. We might think that we can start to have a dialogue, a more open dialogue between the city and the urban part. Well, surely, yes. I would like to see a slide on the cultural model, a graph. First of all, I would like to talk about the graph that is extremely important to me. If we can find a slide, it's important. This new situation that generated also a lot of worrying for all of us brings us inevitably to this graphic, which is the curve of growth and decrease. If we create the economic model, and we have been talking about economic too much in these days, uh, if we only talk about the economic model, then it will create a, a, a political model that then becomes the cultural model. In this moment, we need to think about a new cultural model that then will create a political, that then create the economic. So the other way around. And this is the curve of the growth, the green one. So talking about the cars, if we think that we will continue with the same kind of vehicles that we have now, and again, another provocation with the big SUVs, heavy transportations, using a lot of energy, where the sustainability, it's not as sustainable, because if I need to move a 2,500 kilos of vehicles with 600 kilos of batteries, I mean, where is the sustainability in this way? It's not true. This is not the electric or clean mobility that we want. We need we need to do other things. We need to work with lightness, aerodynamic, moving smartly, the user friendly, and also the use of energy, whether it's electric, hybrid, and thermic. We don't need to use flags and defend some things. We just need to be consistent with what a transportation should do. I brought an example on purpose on how in a city we can have a micro mobility with the public mobility that we mentioned earlier, always in slow motion, the caterpillar system. If we move on to the next slide, I think that the automotive cars, let's say the automotive families now are thinking about this. They need to think about clear typologies of vehicles. The idea of the status of ownership is going to be replaced. It's going to be replaced by a less arrogant approach. If you can put the following slides, the next one, please. This one. I'm not talking about city cars. By micro mobility, I mean smart objects. Very simple. Intuitive. Intuitive to me means like a bicycle. One seat, two seats. Very small. I would say that the dimension for the city will be made according by laws in order for us to regulate the parking places, the size of the lanes. So if we move on to the next slide, or the previous one, now I just want to give some parameters of these small vehicles. This one. So here, for example, for the steering wheel, I think that this kind of vehicles should do a 360 steering space. We all remember of when we used to go to the Luna parks and so on, and when we used to go on the bumper cars, and the same concept. It has to be the minimum size, important, well, quite an important stability, of course, respecting some safety procedures, but it needs to have the possibility to put together objects and accessories, like we do in fashion. In fashion, we have the garments, then we have the belt, the shoes, the bag, the gloves. All of this, I imagine all of this like a basic model. You have a basic model, and then you aggregate stuff, you add stuff. And of course, it must be easy to clean. Easy to clean means that we need to go back to some smart ideas like I had when I was a kid. Like the seats with rechangeable covers, covers that I can wash only with the water and soap. We might use thermoplastic materials, medical material. And this will allow us also a simple wash, simple cleaning process, because when we will share the object, it will be 100% safety, because the concept of hygiene will stay with us for a long time. We won't forget sustainability, low environmental impact, but this slide is important. Hygiene will have an important role for a long time, and through our kids, our children, our schools, our instruction, education, and civical education, our children, our nieces and nephews, they will learn that this is something that we need. This is why we should introduce this in all the products, public or private. Well, Walter, with this reference to hygiene and to the cleaning of this product, in a way, it opens up a new perspective, a new hope, also for that modality that grew a lot in recent years, the car sharing, and that is given today for obvious reason. It's facing a kind of a crisis. The sharing in general is having quite a difficult moment, and just 1 week ago, the leader company in sharing, like Hertz, decided to use the charter level, and this is the measure of the crisis of this department, of this field, and it's a field that moves a lot of the automotive industry. Well, the thing that you just highlighted, either the private, the family sharing, or the public sharing, we can solve this with small interventions. The automotive houses are able, in a short time, to use specific filters, find them, and apply them to the cars that will eliminate the bacteria and the dangerous elements inside of the car. Again, we can use the seats that you can cover, and you can use plastic materials that you can easily clean. Even the ionization, the quick ionization of the vehicles. And this is the effort that I mentioned. Not only the help to have contemporary production, but it helps the funds in order to find research and research and development for the cab drive, for the cabs, the taxis, and the car sharing. It's absolutely important to intervene on the product. It's clear that these people are facing a crisis. But since the car sharing is very important, cabs are very important, it's a duty, according to me, for the automotive industry, the automotive houses, to start this improvement and to start to fund researches in this direction. Of course, if we keep on producing what we were producing last June, and we keep on doing the same thing for June 22, 2022, 2023, and so on. We have had the help, but the product we are doing won't be sold because nobody will want that kind of product. And I tell you another thing, it's a responsibility that sometimes I read that the youngsters are not very attentive to these kind of things. But be careful, because maybe in their being naive, in their way of being kind of detached, that looks like they are detached from some topics. There is a microphone on, guys. I can't hear. And they seem detached, but they are able to absorb a lot of things. And our messages will be perceived and received by the youngsters. So, of course, we are facing a crisis, yes, but we need to start with something smart, something easy, to gain the trust back, also in the car sharing, to gain the trust in making something. An example that has to do with mobility, a rental car. that is brought back to the place in order then to be rented again to another customer. In that situation, you just need to create a tunnel, like the car washing tunnels, where it's hygiene, where it's cleaned, in order to give it to the next to the following customers. In of course, to do this, you need research and study because it's not the car wash. We're talking about making the vehicle clean, like an appliance that we will have in our houses. It's going to be an appliance that will clean, let's say, ourselves before we enter into the house. Going back to the micromobility, I think that the picture you have framed is very interesting and stimulating. But a transportation like this one, which is not a city car, like you said, is something even more basic than a city car. In how much time we can develop this car? Because it doesn't have a lot of content, doesn't have a lot of requirements compared to a normal car. In how much time we can develop this? Well, I'm very realistic. I need to be very realistic. But this kind of car might be on the market in 24 months. Because this is not a smart. This vehicle has different rules from cars. But the first thing would be safety, sustainability, eco-sustainability, and third point, sanitization. And all of this managed by domotic, by domotic also because when the speed is low, it means that it's less dangerous. Low speed will allow also, besides the mirrors, the safety belts, and a few other things, will allow to travel safely. And I mean, I have nothing against the scooters, guys, or the electrical scooters, but of course, the scooter has no rules, like the quadricycles under 450 kilos can be given with a smart license, meaning that you can do this in school already. 14 years old. I trust this because guys are used to play on the PlayStation, are able to use electronic games. So they will be able to use this kind of transportation. So of course, we need to get used to the fact that we will travel 25 kilometers per hour in order to avoid all the mess that the normal cars are doing. I add one thing. With all of this, we have rules. There are some golf cars that you can transform, that you can change and improve. So there is already a technical literature about this that is very much advanced. And it seems that with AMI 1 or AMI 2, the Citroën, the group Peugeot, they're thinking about this kind of transportation. So they're not something dangerous. They're not a copy of the proper cars or the normal cars. Are just people mover products, and they are born with a specific goal of reaching this kind of micromobility. And this would change a lot our cities. Another thing, when we think about our cities, we think about Milan for us, for me, Walter, and Roberto. But think about the whole country. The Riviera in Liguria, it's like a city because it goes from west to east, or the coast on the east side of the Italy, the hinterland around Milan, the hinterland in Rome. I mean, we need to realize also we also have the historical centers. They are small, narrow streets. They need to be quiet and silent. Mm, they need a circulation that now is part of the Ape Piaggio's mobility. So there is just the will to create a different cultural model that then will create the political model, that then will create the economical model in order to relaunch. We can't get our economic back with the same production that we had so far. Well, okay, but in all these situations, I understand that this is not a design question, but the automotive houses, and I ask you because also you had a long, huge experience into the automotive houses, would they be ready for this kind of revolution? Well, the car, the automobile, it's four wheels. Automotive is ready, is more than ready. First of all, we have very good engineers, developers. Second, we have a wonderful supply chain of suppliers who are ready to do innovation. The important thing is to trust each other. We have experience, a huge experience in handling. We know everything. We have an extraordinary know-how. In addition, I I hope that no one is offended by this, but we are the only ones to design, put on the road the most complicated object in the world. To drive an airplane, you need a pilot. To go on a sailing boat, you need a skipper. To to drive a car, you need to know the codes. Click a button, and anybody can do. Only the ball is easier than the car. With the ball, once you kick it, you understand that you can play. And next step is the car. So the complexity of this one brings me to say that we are ready. We are more than ready. Only thing that we have to do is to take off our clothes, our old clothes, the old rules linked to the market, and that forced many occasions in putting the car as a status symbol, as an arrogance, as being aggressive. We need to go back a little bit. We need to go back to those origins. And I mean, the origins of the Second World War, after the Second World War, where we had the first democratization of Europe with the 500, 600, Renault 4, Citroën for horsepowers, and the Beetle, the Volkswagen Beetle. Smart vehicles that allowed us to cross the border and understand what Europe was. About this, I see that there are some questions, some curiosity in the chat. They would like to know, some of the students, some of the people who are following us, they would like to know your opinion on the K car in Japan. That they are quite close to this concept. I mean, very small cars answering to some rigid requirements, also regarding size by law. They need to respect these requirements. They need to obtain the maximum mobility in very, let's say, in very restricted size. It's maybe a reference for this. Well, I think very well. I mean, those cars were born for Japanese territory. Japanese territory for many years had one-way street, and that's it. And you just needed to stop to let the other car pass by until you could do your return. And that became very useful, especially in Osaka and Tokyo. They became very useful for the delivery transport, small objects and things. I think they're really well, and probably they were contemporary for the Japanese territory, but we didn't understand them. maybe they were too advanced for us at the time. For example, in the US, they don't have this kind of problem. I mean, Japanese are more than 100 million of population, so they had a space problem. I think they're really well, and also the concept of the delivery. We didn't mention it earlier, but today with the delivery and the purchase on the internet, we we have objects, things coming to our houses. So micro transport is going to be very useful about this, with low impact and more ecological, for sure, no doubt, no doubt. Well, and then we will also talk about more about the design. Well, a question for this theme. Well, you mentioned the democratization of the automotive in the 50s and 60s for the massification of the transport. But we have to say that the profitability of these transportations is quite low, very low. So we also need to talk about this. I mean, for a producer, is it worth it to sacrifice the profits? I mean, I'm talking about volumes for an industry that might become important. Is it an acceptable compromise, or is it something that makes this movement quite ephemeral in a way? Well, I think, in my opinion, we need to think in another way. We need to think about an open mobility, like fashion taught us in the last 20, 30 years. I was talking about this before. We need to create some joint ventures, some deals, agreements in which, next to the basic transportation, like to the basic garment that is functional and very easy, smart, a whole series of accessories around to implement the product. We need to find a way to make it economically, well, profitable for the companies through an explosion of customization, because we like to buy our peculiar luggage, the specific bag, the weird shoes. I'm convinced that we don't have only one pair of sneakers at home. We have different pair of sneakers, but we don't need to have 10 pair of sneakers. So you need to be innovative also in the marketing, in the sales department. You can't think only about making money, because the more I tend to luxury, the more the development costs are the same. No, I need to find agreements, I need to find deals on the market that go in another direction. I just sit on myself and think about selling like we used to until last year. An average car that it's rigid, it's static. I can only have one color, couple of, well, five colors, sorry, a couple of interiors and two, three options for the rims, and then I just call it sport, luxury, and so on. It's not about this. We need to overcome this barrier. The marketing needs to work. Marketing always follows design. Okay, so now I will make some friends with this sentence. But marketing always follows design. It's like this. We need to create the wish, the desire. We don't have to follow it. We need to create it. There was a sketch before that of a vehicle that I drew. So for the basic structure, for the basic car, the basic vehicle, you might have any kind of I don't know, any kind of cover. The lady would like to have the same cover, but with the name with the logo of a brand, a fashion brand. Why not? So you need to start a whole series of activities. And if we move on to the playful part, the toy part, And for what you said, we need to find inspiration sources that are not the stereotype of cars. Here, I wanted to get inspiration from toys that we all know, that are not just toys actually, because the and what came from this? What do I what did I do after this? Let's see the next slide. Please, next slide. So I got inspiration from cartoon, from the safety feeling, simplicity, and everything needs to be soft. So from this, instead of getting the inspiration from a Lamborghini, moving on next slide, we thought about simple things, closer also to a young audience, a younger audience, very young audience, like kids, who are able to find themselves in these characters. They find a common dialogue. So the shape, next slide. So the shape, we chose the monkey for this example. And you see that from the sketch of this monkey face, very nice, you have the shape of the of the microcar. So we need to come up with something in the marketing, in the communication way. It's not just about four wheels, a seat, and a go-kart. It can't be like that. Automotive industry, designers, engineers, they are ready. Of course, this is an adventure by categories, easy to produce and easy to test, an extremely safe product and a high quality product. This is what we have to do. But again, this is my vision. I mean, if somebody else has another one, free to say and free to mention it. This is mine. And on example of the urban micro car. But this brings us, and I finish, to an intercity transportation. I think that the intercity should exploit a constant speed using the highway network that we have, safety distance, the automatic brake radar is okay as automatism, so we can move from one city to another in 100% safety. So going on, I mean, traveling at 100 kilometers per hour, and we know the limit. I mean, it's it's the same. And I finished by saying that the luxury cars and the sports cars, with all the criterias and elements that we have, like the one-timer, one-offs, and so on, they will be successful. They will still be successful because it means that the lucky ones who will be able to drive these kind of cars, they will use them on private circuits and in safe areas where they're able to drive and to play with their toy. So, well, I see the car still as with a lot of potential. I'm very optimistic, but mainly we need car men, people who love car, and not managers of the companies who could not care less about the cars. They just think about the profits. Okay, sorry for the last term. Well, he swore. I didn't translate the bad word. I also asked to the organizers of this meeting how should we move, because I checked the time and it's almost 20 to 8. We have a lot of questions. We might stop actually and answer to some questions from the students and the people. Otherwise, we can move on with this chat. I would answer to some questions, yes. Okay, good. So here I see a couple of, well, more than questions, I see also some observations. Someone is taking the Citroen AMI, highlighting the fact that it might be a good example of efficiency as well. And to the this kind of efficiency that reduced the number of molds because the Citroen AMI it's made out of interchangeable parts. So the back and the front are the same mold, only the light changes. The bumpers are the same, interchangeable. The doors are following the same criteria. And in fact, the problem of the doors is solved by opening them one in a traditional way and the other one against the wind. So in a very smart way, we need to make it affordable. So someone else actually mentioned the T2527 by Gordon Murray as an example. Someone is asking, am I wrong or the Apeca Piaggio, if that was electric, would respect the criteria explained by Mr. De Silva? Well, I completely agree on this Citroën PSA project because I think it's one of the most interesting projects that appeared. And by the way, if we need to imagine that we need to disassemble the Fiat 500, for example, also the Fiat 500 in 1956 had some really, really exceptional solutions on the smart concept. So for sure, the direction taken is good one, is the good one. Every example that would try to solve these kind of things is always considered as complicated and so on. The important thing that we need to understand is the volume of production. As you said, I have quite an experience. So an affordable, smart transportation need to reach some numbers in order to be efficient, to be profitable. So I am convinced that on one side, if you have the bumpers that are the same, the doors that are the same, and everything that is important, that if the number will increase, then you will also have the possibility of a strong customization. This is what you said earlier. So the customization, because there will be the possibility to invest on a successful product, like many successful products, and to have a huge range. And by talking about the Ape Piaggio, of course, it has a limit on the 3 wheels, the Ape Piaggio, but the concept is amazing, and the size and the transportation, in the user-friendly it is, in the fact that you can push it manually, and in the fact that you can use it for many reasons, and for sure. I would expect from Piaggio, I would expect a project for a new Ape Piaggio. Well, someone is asking this question: how could you transfer this new framework of design thinking, so this new setting, to the emerging countries where the needs are completely different from the ones that we have in our cities, and where they ask to the transportation to be some horses like indestructible, horses that puts in connection very distant areas from one from the other. Well, this is a complicated thing because we all think that in the emerging countries, Asia, Africa, this kind of thing, people need this kind of transportation. And it's true. They need a vehicle to work, but it's not their desire. It's not their wish. They dream about having BMW, Mercedes. It's the opposite. Because to letting mobility be democratic is a very demanding effort. Since a long time, actually, there is this kind of contradiction. On one hand, I want to move, but at the same time, I want the luxury car, the status symbol. What we could do, according to me, is starting from the commercial vehicle and then slowly transforming that into a city car. But it's very complicated because the kind of request, the kind of need is exactly the opposite of what we are imagining. I'm checking the questions, even though it's a lot of Turkish.
Ok. Bene, quelle iniziali sono tutte sulla traduzione.
So the first ones are on tradition, on the translation. So let's go. So here, there is a question about the delivery, but I think you mentioned something. This other question actually is about the acceptance time from the public. It looks like a long and tough process because we need to change mentality in the customer. The customer needs to change mentality because the car is something that you're proud of and so on. Well, I have a feeling that in this long period of forced lockdown when we couldn't move, maybe we matured in a way. We got more mature. We also developed a different relationship with objects. So on one side, we start to give values to the small things that we didn't care once. On the other hand, we slow down everything, and we are also able to give values to some things that we took for granted, maybe, like a nice drive, for example. So maybe also the car became less a product that you exhibit, that you display, and more something that you have to enjoy. Well, on this observation of this kind of guest, on this question / observation, let's be careful because look at the electric bicycle. Now it's well designed, detailed. What I said earlier. Today, you don't feel less than others if you drive the bike, if you ride the bicycle. The bicycle itself now it's a symbol. So again, no, I don't agree. I don't agree. I mean, Smart was the first one to design a mini city car, 2 seats. It's a mini car with 2 seats. We see then, we witness different versions, the cabriolet, the coupe. They worked really well. And that's it. We can't say nothing against it. I mean, we don't have to be afraid of this. It's just a kind of transportation. I need to feel pride that I can go to the movie theater walking, riding the bicycle, electric bicycle, or with this kind of object. I shouldn't feel less than somebody else, than everybody else, just because I have this transportation. this is how I meant. I mean, we need to change mentality. And in this case, the experts in the market sciences, they need to understand it because how they could meet this consciousness. We are more conscious now. And then I'll finish by saying that a nice drive, well, for my generation, for those of my generation, well, yes, uh, I don't have hairs anymore, but feeling the air, the vibrations, the feeling, the seats, the sounds of the engines, I mean, all the senses putting together, plus a peculiar sense that I can't define, that is controlling and using the transportation you have available. I mean, there's no digital thing or augmented reality that can replace this. We have seen it in the F1 drivers in these weeks. They did the virtual F1 Grand Prix. We all agree they did that, but they are dying by putting themselves back into the cars because it's just different. It's just different. It's just another thing. You know, another interesting thing for our listeners. It's not enough to design a car. That car needs to be tested, needs to go on the road, and you need to drive it. Otherwise, it's nothing. The real result is when the car starts to move. It's the strongest emotion because it's something alive and it gives you the best feelings there. And I don't know how many objects are there in the world that are able to give you these kind of feelings. Well, here we have a couple of questions. One is on materials. And someone is asking how you can promote this material, this environmentally friendly material, when you design a car, and how the customer needs to intervene in this theme. Well, for the materials, there are some materials used in the medical industry with specific characteristics. We need to evaluate them. You know that cars use materials that are regulated. You need to pass some tests done in the laboratory, otherwise you can't use them. So you need to test them. So from the point of view of the aesthetic result, the technical result, and hygienic result, these materials have very good qualities. It's just about working on these things, because today, I think for someone who's selling a car, saying that it's easy to sanitize, it's, well, maybe not the truth. Someone is asking, how can you create harmony between the micro-mobility in the city with the intercity transportations? And someone else is going back to the theme of creating an emotional link with these objects that maybe, yes, are funny, playful, customizable, but at the end of the day, there are always a transportation that you need to move from A to B. Well, I think that the intercity transportation from one city to another is very important, and it's going to be very important to improve network roads have, especially for the main highways and the main roads. When you enter into the city, you need to create a mobility that it's not that with a new mayor there is a new road, there is a new road, the new direction. This needs to be done by people who care about sharing the network, private and public transportation. And this is a very important aspect. And then I can imagine that for the intercity will be electric or hybrid, and so they will still be able to travel in the city, not all the city, but most of the city. For the micromobility, if the site is regulated by the law, we can rethink about all the parking spots, all the garages, all in a different way. Also because they are clean objects, and the concept of the old garage, the old parking spot, the old box, it would be obsolete. And to answer to that curious question about how to feel in the emotion, it's simple. Don't put glass, don't put doors. Just put a bar and feel the wind. Because at 30, 35, 40 kilometers per hour, with my old child, the scooter by Piaggio, the old scooter, I was just having the best time ever. We need to refine, finding this situation again of moving in the air, through the air. Of course, if you close yourself in a box that moves at 30 kilometers per hour, I mean, 30 kilometers per hour, open air, is just extraordinary. We need to get back to the analogical relationship, the analogical feeling of our human body with these kind of objects. This is why it's much funnier to drive a chow. I suggest you to, if you find one, if you still find one, uh, it was a bicycle, it was a Velosolix, a bicycle with the engine, more than a scooter, very technological and so on. I dare to say which is the finest one. But there's another question that I try to recap like this in a free way, I would say. So, suggesting this, since we're talking about micro mobility and low speed, so we are talking about a reduction of car accidents. Why rethinking also the bodies of the car, changing them, and maybe checking some rubber material, soft rubber, or some self-regenerating materials? Very, very clear observation. Yes, we should use thermoplastic, like I don't know, I mean, we need to use materials that let's not say rubber, let's say that we use plastic, possible recyclable, that offers these things, that overcomes the small damages. For example, the painting, even if you, the matte painting, even if you scratch it, you don't see it. For safety, I would bring forward the studies on the external airbag, not the one on the steering wheel, maybe on the bumpers. Another thing against, I mean, those who go to the mountain, for the skiers also, there are some airbags that are like balloons that are like inflating around you, and they're like jackets that you put on. So we need to just move on with innovation. We can't think about the painted body car that you can't even touch it, but we need to think about materials that with some small damages, really slow accidents, nothing happens. And this is important, just like in safety. Um, Rethinking about another safety. Of course, the passive and active ones need to be balanced with some easy stuff that we are already using for other goals, for other industries. For example, again, the airbag of the skier, of the motorcycle, of the biker. Surely, very, very interesting perspective. Here, they're asking, how can we satisfy the need of transportation of families and friends traveling together? Today, the sport utilities are chosen by many because they're easy for people and luggages. Well, on luggages, I'm more skeptical, but for the transportation of people, yes. Well, the SUVs, I think that I believe in one thing. Mercedes, by the way, already started to launch something about the compact SUVs. So let's not exaggerate with the big size because we're not going to want that. So we need some compact thing. On the driving on a certain position, on a higher position, is the most positive aspect of the SUVs. To drive on, let's say, on top, and to have everything under control. On the luggage, I mean, on the trunk, I think like you. I mean, they are ridiculous, not comfortable. So even for the extra urban mobility, intercity mobilities, transportation that you drive from the top, I think yes, it should be a mix between the SUV and the normal car. I mean, design we need to give a lot, and but we are not going to use this big size. I think that the big cars, the big SUVs, are the next transportation to be extinct. Here we have a question from, well, about design, high design questions, asking how the designer will be able to visualize, to read the next cultural model, avoiding to do something banal that is just a consequence of a delayed action. Well, I think we need to think a lot about the discipline. A car designer, first of all, needs to have the responsibility and the duty to be technical a little bit. And to understand the architecture, the stability of a transportation of a vehicle, the energy to move the vehicle. I mean, the designer needs to be a half engineer. Afterwards, in all the project, you need to push a strong idea and defend it. Because there are a lot of defeats. I mean, guys, really, I have suffered a lot of defeat. But sometimes it also happened that I was able to get my idea through, a strong concept through. Third, I believe that styling that can be used in a derogative way, but styling as the final part needs always to be balanced between aesthetic and the proportion. So yes, a lot of balance and the exaggerations, the arrogance. I have lived this also in person the last 10 years, the last decade between 2010 to 2020. It's just out of context. I mean, we exaggerated. We went too far. We have 1 meter 60 cars designed as a Lamborghini or Ferrari. It's not good. It's just exaggeration. And that will be rejected by the market. Sooner or later, we will reject the exaggerations. So the suggestion to be advanced, to be avant-garde, is never to have the problem of being a follower of an existing product. Even if the risk is that you get a strong defeat, who cares? Try to propose something personal or share with a group of people. Another question, Walter, that takes, well, it is design versus marketing. And the question specific asks how the research, the market researchers becomes an influence in the design work? Well, I answer you with two examples, so we are more clear. Let's do it this way. Three examples. Okay, three. Because it's not just marketing. I also want to criticize my friends, my technical friends. 156. When I moved the plates on the side, because I wanted to put the shield of Alfa Romeo to recreate the trial of Alfa Romeo, they told me that the license, the plate on the side was a problem, but we made it. We made it, and it's one of the few examples that I mentioned earlier. When you keep and go on with an idea. Second example, Audi. When I designed the single frame, the one that I presented for the first time in Geneva, and then it was applied on the A6, that was the first one. The clinic text of marketing said, beautiful car, but changed that awful front part. Third example, Polo, not the last Volkswagen Polo, the one I designed, the previous one. Marketing came to me in the office and said, that design will never be sold. It was car of the year, world car of the year, benchmark, and most sold car for 5 years in Europe. Defend your ideas, guys. And the Volkswagen Polo is a very good example. Nobody knows this. It's an example of a car who received the most important international award, international prize for how easy is it to assemble. How easy it is to assemble. Sorry. Very good. And by the way, about this, I don't know if I can remind this in this context, but I seem to remember a very funny thing, a funny anecdote about you and the big chief Mitacom on some clink test that was done, I think, on the Audi A6, maybe, or I can't remember the model, in which the results of the clinic tests weren't that good, weren't comforting. And the big chief was quite worried. I don't know if you remember this episode, if you want to share it. Yes, he was very worried. He said that before the launch, he didn't sleep for 1 week, for a whole week. He just couldn't sleep. But it's the strength of the ideas, the risk, and especially when you are conscious about what you do, especially in the automotive, when you're conscious of the fact that what you do brings innovation. And at the same time, you rely on technical history of men and women. It gets the project more human, which is the most important thing. You see, we go back to the human factor that the car has since forever, since the car was made, since it was celebrated, since it was photographed, since it was brought to compare any kind of comparison. So why this product is the only product that has this kind of own life, own history? We have design magazines where we talk about designs products, but we don't have the Quattro Ruote, the magazine for washing machines. Someone is asking if the bicycle with some energetic assistance might become the urban vehicle of the future. Yes, it already is. It already. I'm very happy as an owner of an e-bike. I adore it. I love it. It allows me a good autonomy. I have the pleasure of the air in my face. I just ride because I do a lot actually. I go in a lot of places with the bike, and I think it has a great future because the bicycle, is stable, as a certain stability, a certain drive, and has a certain history, and it's a very long history, a very long tradition of development, and they reach exceptional results. My only criticism on the scooter is that one, because they will need to work a lot on the scooter to let it grow. Because like we have it now, they don't have the same values of a bicycle. Bicycle, chapeau, make it a someone is asking about the evolution of the 3D printing and how technology, the 3D printing technology, can be involved in the design of the vehicles that we mentioned this evening. Well, surely, 3D printing is a software and a hardware. The machinery to print in 3D, every there is a big fair in Germany. Every year we are surprised because they have an evolution in quality, speed, efficiency, extraordinary. So it really is a constant evolution. You know, software. I mean, with the computer that we have available now, we can do something extraordinary, really. So I really believe. I mean, the vehicle is always a complicated object, but as is already happening in races and the auto races, the 3D printing is really, really important. So there are a couple of questions. The one is about the evolution of electrifying, well, electric product. And another one who would like to know something about the self-driving. Well, regarding the pure electric, I've always had my idea, and I think that important thing is not pure electric, hydrogen, gas, whatever. The important thing is the energetic balance. If I need to produce a battery, and to produce that battery, I consume more energy than an engine, then no, it's not good. If at the end of a battery, in order to waste it, I need to use a double energy than the one that I used to build it. We're not there. I think that each transportation needs an energetic balance. This is why, especially in the cars, weight and aerodynamic are two important factors that are helping in decreasing the energetic use, and so also the CO2 impact. But don't think that with the huge package of batteries that some cars have, they saved energies. They needed thermal energy to build those batteries. Regarding self-driving, well, it's quite peculiar because those who live in California think of self-driving in a way. If you live in Milan, you have another thought. If you live in Beijing, it's another thing as well. The global self-driving, I don't believe in that. I believe in assistance in certain services. I explain myself. On a regulated urban mobility, a car that is able to park itself, that goes into the parking lot and parking space by itself, is able to wash itself, whatever. I think that on this side, yes, we can reach this level. Maybe we could also reach a path, a certain path, but I wouldn't call it self-driving or auto-driving. I have tried them. I have driven it, and I went on a specific path. It's a weird feeling, very weird, that tells you something. it tells you that you're not on a car, you're on something else. It's limited to one, two people, yes, but it's something else. It's not a car. The brake, the curve, the throttle, uh, it's all very peculiar. And I assure you that the one that I tested were like very advanced. And I end this answer by saying that the modern cars, they, I mean, all the accessories they have, they all have the self-driving accessory. There is a software that keeps them different, keeps them apart. So it's a very important step that doesn't involve only automotive industry, but also the rules, the laws, the policies, and so on. They're asking a couple of words on the interior design of the trends of the interior design of the cars. Well, I really believe into simplicity. Well, first of all, I am convinced that interior design as as a kind of furniture, let's say, is going to be very warm, very welcoming, nice, color-wise and lights-wise. That you can change also the mood of the interior of the car. You might have different moods, night version, day version, this kind of thing. This for sure. Concerning the tools and equipment, I think that the most efficient thing, the safest thing, is to have the certified vocal command. Like, tell me the street to go home, it recognizes the voice and it teaches you. So very few commands, having thousands of buttons that you can't even comprehend are like the smart remote control of the TV. I mean, the one with two buttons are more efficient than the one with 50,000 buttons. And then we need to be careful to what is going to be the communication. I think that we need to reach a point in which we need to improve the civical education. Therefore, we need to communicate more between drivers. Maybe through some easier system, simpler system. But I don't know, through a good communication, we might reach the level of being non-aggressive, or at least less aggressive at least. This is a question from a student asking for suggestion to the designer on how do you anticipate this trend, these future trends. We talked about defend your ideas, try to look forward, but how do you understand these things? Well, if it's a student, the one who asked, you need to be patient, extremely patient, because like in any job, the first 10 years, maybe more, is just about learning, studying, researching, evolving yourself, improving yourself. And then you need a good spirit and a bit of luck. By luck, I mean finding your boss, in your employer, someone who trusts you. Look for someone who believes in you and allows you to work on your good ideas. Without the prince, the artist is nothing. This lesson coming from the Renaissance. Someone would like to know what is your opinion on personal mobility, air mobility. And we are referring to the recent studies on the air mobility. So the Airbus studies. Well, I know that there are a lot of studies to transport people, not only objects, with let's call it like let's call it drones. I don't even know if it's right to call it like that, but drones coming also from the army, the military environment. But well, besides the rules, there is going to be a code for that. It would be necessary to have a series of rules for that. But from the sensorial point of view, I'm quite worried about, just like it happens on the wheel, is the noise. Because the examples that I've seen that are about to arrive have a very annoying buzz. And I don't know how they will manage it. But imagine, I mean, not 1, 10, 20 objects like this. Imagine hundreds, thousands of these objects. Imagine the noise that will be created. Again, for example, the tram. There was such an improvement that the new generation of tram here in München, in Bayer, they're almost silent. But we're talking about years and years of research. And then we will need some docks for drones, because I don't think that we can land everywhere with our drone. Whether it's a countryside or a city, we just can't. So we need rules. Yes, the system of rules and policy. But whatever, if it's innovation, I'm interested. So, well, someone is asking for your point of view besides the cars. So industrial design and how the design of a chair or a box or a camera can be the difference. So the responsibility of the designing objects. Well, I needed them because I couldn't focus too much on some ideas. Because moving on with time, your experience brings you not to relax, but to avoid wasting time. So what I designed outside of the automotive industry was useful for me to regenerate myself. Besides my curiosity and my interest for design in general. But right now, the most stimulating thing, I'm working on a couple of ideas on the concept, because one of my brother is a doctor. I have 3 brothers. One is a doctor in the ER, and with him we have been talking by asking specific questions. We have been talking and about an oxygen mask that it's not obsolete, and I'm moving forward with a project like this. I don't have a client. It's just something that I'm doing personally. A second project that I'm doing always on a personal level, something that I mentioned earlier, is an appliance that is used for the hygiene before we enter into our apartments and our homes. The sanitation of your shoes, of your clothing, or maybe a direct contact with my doctor. So an appliance, a proper appliance with the standard size of appliances. To think that that might be a new help, not the refrigerator that tells you that your eggs, that you don't have eggs anymore. That is BS. something that tells you, okay, you might have some health issues. Remember the pills, wash your hands, remember the gloves. Uh, it has a contact again with the doctor. So this might be the new uh, ER box that the health and safety box that we have. And this reminds us of the idea of the robot as the robot used as maids. Well, yes, I think that the robots used as maids or a servant, let's call it. I think that for a startup, for a new entrepreneur, guys who have a better relationship environment compared to ours. So yes, these guys might find an industrial development, and also it could be a source of an interesting source of income. We need it. We are still using washing machines, oven, wash dishes, and that's it. We just stop there. I don't want to call them robots, but I would keep calling them appliances. Let's call them digital, maybe appliances, but with this analogical aspect of hygiene and sanitation and safety. And especially, we have seen in this period how difficult it was. I had personal friends, and it was really difficult to contact the ERs, hospitals, and in this lockdown, in this crisis, we also had this additional crisis. And so, using the digital, using your smartphone maybe to write, to to start a procedure that then will continue into the ER. This is innovation. This is the development. And so to ease the work of doctors, nurses, so I think that this might find some space into the different needs that we have. Someone asked us a question about the hypercars, asking which kind of perspective do you see? Like Bugatti, very exclusive brands as well, like Bugatti, uh, that actually worked for many years. So this makes me think about one thing that I would like to add to this question. I mean, besides the fact that these brands, as you said, will continue to have their role and their clientele, but I wanted to say the term hypercar makes me think about these increasing powers and also increasing weights. But thinking about the brands such as Bugatti, an example, in its tradition, they had small cars and light cars as well. Are we sure that the interpretation of the performance car needs to go through a constant improvement of power, or maybe we need to research more elements like lightness and being compact? Well, I answer you right away. If there is a useful job that we can have as car designer on this kind of transportation, is aerodynamic. Because without the aerodynamic, you have no performances. Unfortunately, I know all of them one by one, my colleagues who work with there. Some of them actually were my employee. Unfortunately, we still witness the aerodynamics seen as an enemy. But aerodynamic needs to born alongside the design, because this will lead to an improvement in the efficiency. You can see it in the endurance cars, in Le Mans. There is no aesthetic design. It's just aerodynamic. If these two will start together, I have some examples. since I am, let's say, I'm still in contact with people and companies working in this field. If you start together with aerodynamic and design, you are able to give the right aesthetic to the right aerodynamic. And when you have a good aerodynamic, and this aerodynamic is joined to the efficient distribution of weight, is the best result. The Dallava, it's a typical good example. There was the intervention of the good designer, nothing to say, but it was created in a wind tunnel. They put some limits of weight and power, and the performances of weights and powers are even higher than some transportation that are considered hypercars. But when you move that, you see this like weight on you. In addition, aerodynamic and weight are the only efficient contributes we can give. Whether it's a technique with a hybrid, completely electric, completely thermic, and it's a way that we can, I'd say, we can contribute, we can do this in order to reach a good result. Well, there is a really nice example. You should need your colleagues of Water Classic, it's another matter. The Giulia, the most criticized car in the world when it was published, it has a detail. On the side, on the roof, it has two gaps. Those two gaps, actually, they weren't there in the original model. They added them to diminish the frontal air in order to make it more aerodynamic. And this is an extraordinary concept. So how iconographic something coming from functionality became. And it was interpreted perfectly by the designer, Professor, can't remember the name, but professor at the time. And this is what we can do. But the hypercars will stay for, I wish that, I mean, for my generation and the intermediate generations and the future generations, those who can afford them, I hope that they will keep loving them, because driving those cars is something beyond our everyday car. Very good. Walter, it's very, very interesting. I don't know the timing. I asked for help to the administrators of SPD. I think it's 8:30. We have a question by Michele Lionello. Yes, good evening, Mr. De Silva. As a teacher and as a designer, since we have an audience of more than 170 guys from all over the world, or and girls, I hope. So I have two questions. The first, your career started with Fiat, then the idea, and then the head of five-star Alfa Romeo. Guys who are online right now are between 20 to 25 years. A clear memory of that phase of your life as a young designer who started that career. A wonderful memories. First of all, because I was 22 years old. So, of course, they're good memories. They are actually luckier than me, because in my time to attend a design school, you should have gone to England, and my father told me very clearly, we have no money to do that. So I just went to the center in Fiat, where I met wonderful colleagues. I had a huge experience with them, especially engineer Mr. Sapavelli, who was the head of the center design office. So they were called the future transport, the future vehicles. And there were extraordinary years of practice and training, where more than once I was afraid, because I had more disappointments than success. Because of course, when you learn on the field, you you couldn't find generosity on the other side all the time. But I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky because I could draw, hand draw on on the copy paper, um, scale 1:1. So I needed to see the shapes before I drew them, and I had a wonderful school. Uh, the school of the body shop at the Fiat. It was a wonderful school in Fiat, they trained extraordinary technicians, designed with specific rules. Even if today we use powerful tools, we still follow the rules of that design, so the geometry. And okay, based on the answer, I ask you also this last question, a follow-up, per se. In these years, you had the possibility to manage different teams for the different brands that you were managing, and you've seen designers grow up. And today, these designers are responsible of many brands. I wanted to ask you, since the guys who are online are dreaming to have the same career that you have, what suggestions you can give to a guy in 2020 or a girl in 2020 on how they should work on the market, how creative they should be, and at the same time being appreciated by the head of designers like you? Well, first of all, I give a comment that I actually, first of all, the pencil. Draw is like playing the piano. If you don't play it every day, you won't. After 50 years, I'm still drawing. While I'm doing this conference, I just was sketching. I was sketching on the piece of paper. So drawing all day, trying all day, because the drawing, even if you are skilled, still drawing is practice. To reach the excellence, you need to be passionate about drawing every day. Do not lose motivation. And as I said, defend your ideas. It's better to maybe stay quiet. You always need to respect your superior, but if you don't agree, and in that moment you're not able to defend it, stay quiet, be silent, because there will be a moment in which you will do it. You will have the possibility to do it. Behind a great design, there was always a great personality. So one of the things that I suggest to everybody is to draw a lot, yes, to study, yes, but also to improve the personality, mature your personality. And when is the moment to say no, you have to be brave enough to say no. Even if sometimes it forces you to change company. And it's not said, as the Chinese often says, that maybe a fire is not always that dangerous.
Grazie Walter.
So thank you,
Ciao.
Walter.
Ho seguito con molto interesse il tuo intervento, per me è sempre un onore e per la scuola averti come ospite. Ci hai dato degli straordinari stimoli e ringrazio anche quattro volte per la collaborazione Roberto Lorecchio. Stavo guardando le chat e vedo Walter, Alfa 156, è un vero capolavoro. Un abbraccio dagli alfisti brasiliani. Alfa Calcio from Brazil. Questo abbraccio, questo affetto nei tuoi confronti mi ha colpito molto, perché vuol dire che al di là della tecnologia, al di là dell'ergonomia, dell'ingegneria, hai dato al mondo dell'automobile un valido contributo anche a livello di evoluzione. Per cui l'invito è, credo, a tutti i ragazzi, fate delle cose interessanti, innovative, ma sappiate sempre dare dell'emozione. Io credo che Walter De Silva sia il connubio ideale tra queste due anime, la tecnologia, l'innovazione e l'emozione. E Walter, io ti ringrazio perché noi cercheremo di fare con te un laboratorio di sperimentazione qui a Milano sulla mobilità, che metta insieme l'architettura, che mette insieme il discorso delle smart cities, della tecnologia, perché riteniamo che Milano diventerà un luogo straordinario dove fare della sperimentazione. Sono state veramente tante le persone collegate, sono ancora tante dall'inizio, più di 200-300 persone. Questo denota quanto interesse ci sia nei confronti della tematica della mobilità, quanto interesse ci sia nei confronti di una persona che ha fatto, devo dire, la storia di questi ultimi anni, dando un contributo veramente innovativo. Per cui ti ringrazio di cuore per il tuo intervento di altre collaborazioni e di altri stimoli che tu darai a Milano, alla scuola, ma al mondo del car design della mobilità. Grazie Roberto e grazie a tutti voi che avete partecipato con interesse, ci avete veramente mandato tantissimi messaggi e credo che ci riguarderemo tutti con molto interesse, perché anche voi studenti e non solo studenti, appassionati, ingegneri, tecnici del mondo dell'automobile, è stato veramente importante avere anche il vostro contributo. Grazie di cuore e alla prossima.
Thank you Roberto, thank you everybody. Shout out for myself to the guy who shouted me out.
Grazie, Walter.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.